Captain Starlog Supplemental. I must admit to being surprised at finding a human religious colony so far from Earth. It's not that humanity has abandoned religion, but I've known a few people personally, and certainly none driven to leave Earth for their beliefs. I'm curious to see how these people react to us, and whether or not they're as different as I'm anticipating. Welcome back, everybody, to Part 2 of The Curse of God, a Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log solo RPG mission. In our last session, the crew of the USS Challenger, once again an NX-class starship captained by a Sam Bronson, made their way from Taugus 3 to the nearby system of Iota Leonis. In response to an odd and rather vague distress call. The ship arrived in orbit and discovered that the colony had about 3,000 citizens, all of whom are human. And this colony in particular is about 35 light years away from Earth. So, as they arrive in orbit, we'll say that the ship is hailed by someone from the colony. I'm going to pull up a human name generator. I probably don't need to type human in front of that. Alright, let's see what we get. Character names. Let's generate... That's... no. They're hailed by... an entity who claims to be in charge of the colony. Rather, the person on the other line says the other line. The person on the other side of the hail tells Subcommander Tassal that she is, quote, hailing on behalf of the Queen. In particular, Queen McAllister is the name that the crew would be given. And the woman says that the Queen wishes to speak with the captain of this fine vessel at their earliest convenience. Captain Bronson obviously would accept the request and is going to have Ensign Monroe once again pilot him down to the surface. This time, I think once again, actually, he's going to take our Major Lambert from the Makos just as backup, along with who's going to be the most diplomatic person on this crew. I think it can just be Monroe, Lambert, and Captain Bronson. I don't see that there's any reason they're not anticipating a fight. So yeah, we'll go with that. Awesome. So the Ensign Monroe pilots the shuttle pod down to the surface of the planet. They are directed by, I guess, a traffic controller to a landing pad, and are met by a handful of folk wearing kind of a royal red sash over a kind of navy blue uniform. They're all carrying what seem to be bladed weapons, although very clearly modern in design. They seem to have some kind of electrical components to them. As far as how exactly they work, I think first off, they're making Major Lambert incredibly uncomfortable, but she's unable to tell right away how these bladed weapons work. The group are led back through the kind of, I guess we'd call it a palace, relatively small in size compared to some of those on Earth. After all, it is only a colony of about 3,000 people. And we are introduced to, by means of a kind of panning shot, this very long hallway that has glorious artwork, all done in a more modern style. And the camera zooms down to the end of the hallway, about 100 feet beyond where our crew is currently walking. And there are these two great styled, carved wooden doors. And as the crew approach, the doors will open, and we see a throne room beyond. Very bare-looking throne itself. It's made of very nice wood, probably an earthly wood. One would say something like mahogany, I guess. I don't know what woods are elegant. And sitting on it is a woman in her mid-50s, wearing a simple crown, I guess you could call it an ornate like shoulder cape, and a gown, looking very much like the 16th, 17th century monarchs. And as they approach, Captain Bronson, who has had some diplomatic training, he does have a focus in diplomacy, will kind of step forward first and bow to the Queen. And she says, "You may rise. There's no need for that. Welcome to our hall. I must admit I did not expect to see anyone so soon. We have urgent need of assistance, and I take it you received our distress call?" "Yes, Your Majesty. I am Captain Sam Bronson of the United Earth starship Challenger." And the Queen would pause at this and say, "United Earth? Well, that's most pleasing." "Yes, Your Majesty. Earth became united some years ago, I believe 10 to 15 years after your own departure." "What is... Your message was rather vague. What was the... or what is, rather, the nature of your emergency? It seemed dire." "Yes, it certainly is. We need an immediate evacuation of all citizens." Bronson would absolutely, certainly blink at this and would say, "Well, that's... I suppose they can be arranged. May I ask why?" "Yes. There's apparently an impending natural disaster from all signs, scientific surveys we've been able to accomplish, and our people are not one to stand by while the signs pass us. There's a reason we left Earth, and there's a reason we came here, there's a reason we settled in this spot, and there's now a reason why we must leave. The signs have been placed before us, and we will not ignore them." "Forgive me, but you speak of signs as if they're more than just scientific in nature." "That's because they are. I understand that most on Earth are not religious, but we are followers of Imopame. I presume that you are unaware of Imopame. Worship of her has, shall we say, been, through the last century at least, a rather quiet affair." "No, I'm not familiar with Imopame, though I must say my religious history is a bit shaky." "Well, suffice it to say, I don't have enough time, and certainly we don't in general have enough time to go in it in great detail, but Imopame created all there is for us to see, and has left signs for those of us trained to observe them. And we, as I said, listen to those signs." "Yes, Your Majesty. If I may, I would like to have some of my crew take a look at these signs, especially any scientific data you might have collected, and if we could take a look at them, maybe we can see what's actually going on. Our ship is certainly not large enough to carry all 3,000 of your population, but we can send a communication back to Starfleet and see if we can't have maybe a Vulcan or an Andorian ship come to collect you. I'm sure they could send some ships here a little more quickly than Starfleet can." She nods at Captain Bronson. And I think we're going to do our first task of the session here. We're going to switch away from science for a moment and do command. So let's go ahead and do a presence command. Actually, no, let's do Insight Command. He wants to get a sense of exactly what she's thinking. You know, if she's left anything major out of the conversation, that sort of thing. I do still have, useful note, I do still have 1 momentum from last session. So, we're looking for Insight Command. That's a 13. Just need 1 success. That's a 10 and a 15. That will be a success. I think, let's see, is the Queen hiding anything? That's a good question. Let's go to page, back to the quick reference. 50-50, she's hiding something. Yes, she is. No, she isn't. Yes, she is. So she is very clearly, as Captain Bronson is kind of trying to read her, she's very clearly not telling the whole truth. Whether that is about Imopame or about the signs that they've supposedly been reading, she's hiding something, doing a good job at it, but hiding something nonetheless. And yet she's willing to have their data looked at. I think the landing party would be taken then to a scientist, the Crown's scientist named Samar Neville, who would be instructed to show them their data. And we'll go back to Captain Bronson, do our second task, see if he can't figure anything out here. And I don't really know whether there's more to this data than meets the eye or not. So I'm going to roll for it and not tell you guys yet. Okay. So let's go ahead and do our reason science test as he starts to take a look over their various findings. And he does have a focus here in, we'll call it geophysics. I think that will do the best for us. So we're looking reason science. That is a 15. A 10 and a 5. Excellent. We don't need to use our momentum. We're stuck at the 1, so don't do anything there. However, that is our second success. Oh. Messed all that up. Awesome. Love that. Second success. Fix that. Awesome. All right. So, as he looks over the data, I think he'd see that they're getting some like pre-shock seismic data. Reading the electromagnetic fields at various points across the planet. But there's also some pseudoscience very clearly going on. I think that they have reports from a royal dowser who's claimed that there's some great pit opening up under the surface of what did I say this system was? Iota Leonis IV. Further, I think they'd probably have a report from an astrologer, which for a species that is at the point where they're traveling through the stars, astrology makes even less sense than it does now, which is no sense. That's a rant for another time. So there's very clearly some scientific data to back up what they're saying, but Captain Bronson notices like the tectonic activities. They're clearly a little more active than they were a year or two ago. And there's a subsequent change in the electromagnetic field of their planet. And I think, let's see, is this a natural effect? 50-50 on this one as well. It does seem to be natural. Secondary question, is it purely natural? It is not. So I think, given what Captain Bronson knows about geotectonics and, geophysics in general, for a planet to ramp up in tectonic activity to the level that Iota Leonis IV has in such a short amount of time, just a couple of years, and to see a change in the electromagnetic field, there's something clearly going on in the core of this planet that's not a purely natural state. Whether or not it's a malicious thing or an accidental thing, He has absolutely no idea, but if they're going to take a look at it, they're going to need to go back to the ship and try for a more detailed scan of the planet. It's obvious as well, I think, that the data taken that they've been looking at here is from more antiquated technology. Something akin to the 2130, well, 21 teens, 2120s, something along that level. Having collected their data and taken a copy of it for themselves, Bronson, Monroe, and Major Lambert would, along with, I think they probably would have taken just one Mako as backup. We'll say they head back to the Challenger, and we'll begin a sequence of scans of the planet. So this is actually something I didn't mess around with at all in the last campaign, using the ship for tasks. We didn't get into any ship combat, and the ship really didn't do much of anything other than just be the set piece. So I'm going to endeavor, pun partially intended, I'm going to challenge myself, pun definitely intended, to use the ship a little more often in this campaign. That being said, the NX-class ships got absolutely gypped on their systems and departments. I will stand by that for the rest of the time. So we're going to go ahead and do a sensors science scan. This is a 9. There's a strong likelihood that we fail this. And by that I mean slightly more than, well, I guess with 2 dice it should be okay. So we've got like a, 70-80% chance of doing this successfully, maybe 70%. I'll have to look at the odds on that later. But let's go ahead and try for the 9. Drop the die. Well, that was a 10 until I knocked it over. It became a 2. So the 10 is a failure. Where's the 10? I dropped it again. The 10's a failure. However, the 1 is a success. So we've marked another success. The scans of the planet are taken successfully. Is there anything particularly strange? Yeah, I think there is. I think that the planet is resisting the scans to a certain extent. So they're not able to get as strong of a reading or as maybe fine resolution of a reading as they might normally get. They have advanced sensors, so they're certainly better than your run-of-the-mill Starfleet vessel at this point in time. But even with that, I think it unlikely... Actually, you know what? We have a talent that comes into play, and we rolled under the department value for our success, the science value of 3. So I think we generate an advantage with that, if I remember correctly. So with that advantage, I think that they're able to bypass that peculiar nature of the planet's atmosphere that's kind of blocking some level of the scans. I think we would then see on the scans they're able to pick out what looks like at first glance, a sinkhole. Again, from orbit, they're not able to tell if this sinkhole is natural or man-made. So I think Bronson would suggest that they send a landing party down again to take a look. And as far as this landing party is concerned, he's going to take Lieutenant Matthews, the Chief Science Officer. Ensign Monroe is going to go down again as well, as she's piloting the shuttle. And actually, I think we're going to have the Chief Engineer join as well. No, we're going to leave Lieutenant Matthews on board the ship. He's going to try to enhance the sensor resolution, maybe see if he can't detect, run some simulations on what's been going on. And the Chief Engineer, who's got a little bit of a background in science as well, and engineers being, the structural aspects, going towards a sinkhole, not a bad idea. So it's going to be Captain Bronson, Ensign Monroe, and Lieutenant Commander Berglund. And joining them will be a random unnamed Mako. to fill out their quartet. Okay, so they once again fly back down to the surface, and I think we're going to do a task for this. Yeah, why not? I'm going to introduce a complication, one that I don't have to introduce. But I'm going to introduce a complication that another event is occurring as they're flying down through the atmosphere. So we're going to go ahead and make Ensign Monroe do a task. And for her, I'm just going to use Captain Bronson's scores. In reality, she'd be better, but at the moment, I don't have her values offhand. So we'll say, let's just make it up. She's got a control 10 and a con of 4. That'd be a 14. I think that's fairly reasonable for an ensign. Don't need to give her ridiculous stats. Nothing out of the insane. So let's go for a 14. Need 1 success. We do have 1 success, a 9 and a 19. Let's mark that down. I'm just amazed. In the last mission, I don't even know how many threats I rolled, how many 20s I rolled on those dice. So to have 0 at this point is quite nice. So she's able to deftly land Shuttle Pod 1 about 100 meters or so from the edge of the sinkhole. And as they approach, we're going to go ahead and do another scientific task. This one is going to be Actually, we'll do an insight science. So this is another 13. Because it's less about... Yeah, we'll do insight science. Kind of reading the ground. A 4 and a 19. Once again, a success. So as we end Act 2, we kind of pan around and maybe do like an orbiting shot of the landing party kind of circling this sinkhole. And we see Lieutenant Commander Berglund kneel at the edge of the sinkhole and take some scans down inside very carefully. He's kind of leaning away and has very carefully kind of tested the ground right around the edge. And he will say, Captain, this is most peculiar. This sinkhole was man-made. I do not think that it is natural. It is far too regular for that. And as they look down, I think they'd see a very faint light coming from very, very far down. And the sinkhole itself is maybe 30 or 40 feet across. But we'll see the camera zoom down the sinkhole to end Act 2. All right. Once again, I hope you enjoyed Act 2. We will resume. Next episode will come out on Sunday. For Part 3, we will conclude this mission as we see exactly what's going on at Iota Leonis IV. In the meantime, thank you all for watching, and until next time, live long and prosper.